So we have a major new development in the nationwide fight over the ATF's pistol brace rule. The rule is now gone, it's been vacated nationwide, and as a result, most of the lawsuits against the brace rule have now been dismissed and dropped as moot. But now in one of the last remaining cases, the DOJ again just made a statement that confirms exactly what I was worried about and what we've been raising concerns about for a long time revolving around this case. The ATF now openly admits that they can and may still be enforcing the same underlying legal theory that the brace rule was actually, built on, which is that brace pistols are SBRs under the NFA. And now more importantly, like I mentioned, the ATF and the DOJ are openly admitting that. This again confirms the concerns that I've been talking about when it comes to these pistol brace cases, that the ATF and DOJ still can go after these firearms. Just now they're saying that they can do it purely based on the statutory text and that they don't need the rule. So let's break down what just happened in this critical case. Now, before we jump into this video, if you want to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is simply to subscribe. You can also click the like button that just tells the algorithm that you appreciate this content, and so it shares it with more people. So if you've been following the channel for a while, you will know that this whole fight started when the Biden administration put in place the pistol brace rule. That rule claimed that most brace pistols were actually SBRs under the NFA. Now, because of that rule, multiple lawsuits were filed, and eventually a judge, Judge Reed O'Connor, struck down the pistol brace rule entirely in a mock lawsuit, and he issued a nationwide vacatur of the rule. In that case, the Biden DOJ appealed that ruling to the Fifth Circuit, but after the administration changed over, the Trump DOJ decided to drop the appeal in the Fifth Circuit and conceded that mock case. That meant that the pistol brace rule was officially struck down nationwide. Now, after that happened, most of the remaining pistol brace lawsuits that were filed were eventually dismissed as moot because the ATF agreed that the rule no longer existed. Now, currently, the lawsuit filed by Gun Owners of America, GOA, and the state of Texas is one of the last pistol brace challenges that's still standing. And in that case, there have been some new developments which have raised some red flags on whether it was actually a good idea for some of these other cases to be dismissed and dropped and settled really as moot. In the GOA case, GOA in Texas are asking the court for something very different than some of these other lawsuits. They are not just asking for the court to recognize that the pistol brace rule is gone and vacated, they are also asking the court to issue a permanent injunction blocking the ATF from enforcing its underlying legal theory. That legal theory that the ATF still holds is that brace pistols can be treated as SBRs under the NFA just purely based on the statutory interpretation alone. So the ATF and DOJ is saying that they don't even need the rule, they can do this purely based on the statute. So in other words, GOA is trying to stop the ATF from saying we're not enforcing the brace rule anymore, but we still believe that brace pistols are SBRs and that we can regulate them based purely on the text. So this case is designed to prevent any current or future administration from trying to revive pistol brace restrictions without actually passing a new rule. Now, here's where things are getting concerning with this case. The Trump DOJ and the ATF have filed multiple papers in this case, including their motions to dismiss the case and the reply in support of that motion to dismiss. And in those briefs, the DOJ makes various statements that show exactly why this case still matters. They say that the court cannot enjoin the ATF from enforcing underlying legal theories, only final agency rules. They argue that because the pistol brace rule no longer exists, the court has no authority to block the ATF's interpretation that brace pistols are SBRs. So in other words, initially, they did not deny that they held that legal view. They only said that the court cannot stop them from using it. And that was a huge red flag. So GOA in Texas warned the court about this exact scenario. They told the judge that without a permanent injunction, the ATF could simply drop the former rule and then enforce the same restrictions by relying only on the statutory definition of an SBR. GOA explained that the mock case only struck down the rule on procedural grounds. It did not reject the ATF's underlying interpretation of the NFA, which means that the future administrations or this administration could revive brace restrictions without writing even a new rule. And the ATF could selectively target gun owners again using just a legal theory. So that's really the sneaky part of what's going on in this underlying case. The ATF dropped the rule, but they are keeping the underlying legal justification that they can use and try to put in place still on these braced pistols and try to potentially jam people up. But now the DOJ has made this statement even clearer. The DOJ just filed a new response arguing that this case should be dismissed, and in that filing, they made a statement that is incredibly important. They said that even though the pistol brace rule has been vacated, they are still enforcing the NFA and GCA against certain braced pistols. And then they explained that this should come as no surprise because even if the rule was struck down, that never changed anyone's underlying statutory obligations. So this is the part that you need to understand. The DOJ is saying that the brace rule didn't create the restriction. They claim that the statute created that restriction. And even if you eliminate the rule like it has been, it's been vacated nationwide, you still have the liability under the statute and the ATF can still enforce those restrictions. The DOJ even points back to their earlier filings in this case and they say that we already told you this, even if a court blocks this rule, that does not protect anyone from prosecution under the NFA. So this was huge and a much clearer statement that we've been raising flags about, that we've been talking about, that the ATF and the DOJ still have this underlying theory that they can put restrictions on braced pistols just based on the statutory text and that they believe they don't need the rule. This also confirms exactly what GOA and I have been trying to raise awareness about, that the ATF claims they don't need the rule at all, and that they are dismissing all these cases saying, yeah, we'll go ahead, moot these cases, dismiss them, but they don't care because their belief and their current position is that they don't need the rule, so they're going to dismiss all these cases that are challenging the rule, and they're just going to try to enforce this if they want, only on the statutory text. And even more concerning for this case and this issue, the DOJ argues that none of this matters for this case at all. And they say that's because this is a challenge to the APA alone. And under the APA, courts can only review final agency actions, not abstract legal theories. So the DOJ's current position in this case is that even if they are enforcing this interpretation, the court here in this case cannot stop them because there is no active rule anymore that is being challenged in this case. And this is the exact strategy that GOA was warning about, in this case. They said that, the first step would be to create the rule, get the challenge, in court. And then if the ATF lost, they would just drop the rule, but then keep enforcing the same interpretation, try to do that anyway, and just simply argue that the courts can't review that issue. So zooming out, here's what we now have in this case. Yes, the brace rule is gone. The Biden administration brace rule has been vacated nationwide. The DOJ admits enforcement of that rule is gone, but the DOJ also admits that enforcement and restrictions on, brace pistols as SBRs can still potentially happen, but just purely based on the statute alone, and that the statute is enough. And they argue courts can't stop that interpretation, especially not in this specific case. So that's where things currently stand right now in the critical pistol brace battle and case that's going on, which was filed by GOA in the state of Texas. Again, the formal brace rule is struck down nationwide through that vacature of Judge Reed O'Connor, but GOA in their case is now kind of the last line of defense to potentially prevent future rules from popping up or from the administration just trying to regulate braced pistols purely based on the NFA statutory text. And based on how this goes, this case may determine whether the pistol brace restrictions are truly gone or just waiting to come back in another form. So we will now wait to see how does the court respond to this, how do they respond to the motions to dismiss the case, and GOA's argument that this case is not moot and that it needs to be moved forward and that a permanent injunction needs to be put in place against that underlying legal theory. So that's what's currently happening. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment down below and I will try to answer to the best of my ability. If you guys like this video and you would like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is simply to like, comment, and subscribe. All of those things help to fuel the algorithm and just tells the algorithm that you appreciate this type of content, and so it shares it with more people. But as always, thank you so much for all of your support, and never forget this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.